the end. Correct.
Oh, okay. That's right.
It's too distracting because there'd be so many people.
Gotcha.
But we hope you'll join us. We have 38 so far. We'll wait another couple minutes. And I just have to tell you, just looking at these recipes, I started to salivate. They sounded so good reading them. And that's just not my thing.
Cooking?
Yeah.
Jodi, I'm obsessed with the Charoset cake. I cannot wait to do a riff on that.
I want Charoset cake.
We should have put that in the menu. You should talk about it.
I have it. I have it
there. It's the last one. It's matzah toffee crunch and chocolate Charoset.
Oh, you have it together. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Just Gai is going to figure out how to make it gluten free.
Maybe
I gluten-free flour.
She's amazing.
I shy away from things with gluten-free flour. I just make like almond flour or whatever.
Right, or pecan, whatever, nut flour.
So I'm going to start. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cooking for Passover with my amazing guest. First of all, my co-moderator and co-host, Jodi Berman, who, where can you find the recipes? Already people are asking. They're going to be on our website, and everyone who has signed up, you will get them emailed to you personally. You will receive all of the recipes in your emails today or tomorrow at the latest, because it's a lot of emails. So you will be all getting the recipes, so don't worry. You don't have to take notes unless you hear some variations that you want to write down, but you're all going to get them, and I'll repeat that again later. So as I was saying, I want to welcome my co-moderator, Jodi Berman, who is not a professional chef, though last week she baked and gave me some bagels she made. So she's pretty impressive. And I would like to introduce our other guests. I'll begin with Diane Worthington. Hi, welcome, Diane.
Thank you for having me.
We have Gai Klass.
Hello.
And Claudia Cevenini. Three wonderful congregants and chefs. And I just want you each to share, as I said before, your life in cooking briefly. And what are you doing this Passover as compared last year with most of us just Zoomed. So I'm curious. So I'll start with Diane.
So my life in cooking, it became my career. I was a rehab counselor. Got my master's in that, but it couldn't keep me away. I went to the Cordon Bleu right after I finished my undergraduate work at Berkeley. And I started writing for various newspapers, the Herald Examiner, for those of you who are 105 might remember that one. Anyway, ultimately I was asked to write a book on what I wanted to do, because they thought I had something to say, which turned out to be a good thing, because I wrote a book called The Cuisine of California, which to my delight became a bestseller. It sold about 600,000 copies. And from there, I started my career writing cookbooks, teaching. I had my own James Beard award-winning radio show on KBC Talk Radio for a number of years in food and wine and travel. And I have a syndicated column with the Chicago Tribune that goes all over the country every week. So I'm still doing that 14 years later. So it's enough already.
And what are you doing for Pesach?
For Pesach, we're having the other family that we usually celebrate it with, and everybody but one person is vaccinated. So we're really able to do it inside. And I told my daughter, who's 35, it's time for her to figure it out. So she's coming over, and I'm going to teach her some things this year. So I'm very excited about that. And one funny story. I was once doing this TV show. It was, it was Hour Magazine, and they needed somebody at the last minute. And they asked me if I could talk about Charoset year round. So I did a whole thing on what Charoset was and how you can do it year round. And you know what? It's pretty damn good year round.
I bet it is. Thank you. Gai?
So my life with food started when I was very, very little at my mother's knee. I just had a passion for cooking, especially baking. And fast forward, I did a lot of cooking for, just for myself. fast forward, I wanted to divorce the man I was married to. And I was in therapy, and my therapist said, well, why don't you? And I said, I have to figure out a way to earn a living. So she said, well, why don't you do something that you love doing? And I thought, well, I love cooking more than anything. So I took some classes. I had, Eric was a little boy, Amy was a baby. I didn't want to wean her to go to a cooking school full time. So I waited till she was 3, and then I just put the word out, and I became a caterer. And my business was very successful. I was very fortunate. After 26 years, I sold it to Wolfgang Puck Catering and went on to do event production for another 8 years, at which point the boys, my twin grandsons, were a year, and I really was exhausted and burned out, and with a lovely, wonderful new husband. And he encouraged me to retire, so I did. But the interesting thing, I think, that I try to figure out is that I was really destined to cook. And I was in the midst of planning my parents' 40th wedding anniversary celebration many years ago when they suddenly became kosher out of the clear blue sky, and I could not do the food for it. So that was a disappointment, and I was sad, but we went on. And then one of my greatest joys is cooking with my grandsons. And it's the way that we stayed connected by cooking over Zoom during the pandemic. Now I can see them because we're fully vaccinated. But lo and behold, 2 years ago, Jake was diagnosed with celiac disease. So one of my favorite things in the whole world is baking, but now my house is completely gluten-free. So I've had to learn a whole new thing. So I don't know whether, I'm not sure. There's some karmic thing here, I think, that I can't do my thing the way I like to do my thing for the people I love the most, but I get to do my thing, so it's fun.
And
You're going to share a lot of gluten-free recipes today. Well, I have a few. I have a few, but I have a lot, but I have a few. And this year? Sorry, this year we're going to have my daughter's family, my daughter's son-in-law, and the 2 boys. Eric is just beginning to get vaccinated, my son, so they're going to be on Zoom. And we're going to do, I always try to do a theme. We've done a variety of themes. Freedom, where we all dressed up in costumes or brought fun things. I was the Statue of Liberty one year. This year, and last year we did, it was actually the most fun. This year we're going to do Minecraft. There are some Minecraft videos for Passover. There are 2 of them. And I have to watch them and see which is appropriate. So I try to really bring the children in and make it fun. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you. Claudia from Italy, everyone. By the way, Claudia hails from Italy, and she lives here now, but she brings the flavor of Italia with her.
Yes, I do. And listening to you too, Diane and Gai, I'm a cross between the 2 of you. I was born in Italy. I've got good food and cooking in my genes because my mom is an amazing, amazing cook. And I was the kid in the house, the only kid on the block who would pine for frozen food because my mother would refuse to buy anything that was not, made from scratch. So I would go to my friends' houses and, ask for, fish sticks, much to my mother's chagrin. But it's in my blood, and I worked in entertainment for a very long time until I married my husband, and that's where you come in, Gai, because I stopped working, and after 6 months I realized that I couldn't stay home, and I figured out what else I could do with my life, and I really loved cooking. So I went through sort of your same experience, but what I did, I started apprenticing at a restaurant, and eventually I worked my way up. And I became a chef. I was at the Getty Center for like 9 years. So if you're ever at the Getty Center up until like 5 years ago, you probably had some of my food. I stopped cooking professionally about 3 years ago, just because it's so incredibly hard on your body, and I was getting way too old for it. So I do something completely different right now. But of course, I used to cook for a living, so I still cook a lot. And this pandemic has seen me making bagels on a regular basis, Jodi. So we should have a bagel,
Oh, how fun. We should do that.
And this year it's going to be a very, very small affair because it's going to be a Passover at my house only with the vaccinated people. So it's only the old folks who can come. But it's the first Passover at my house and not at my mother-in-law. So it's really mine, which means all manners of Italian dishes are going to be there.
Sounds delicious. So I'm going to turn this over to Jodi now, and she's going to ask people. We're going to go in order: appetizers, main course, sides, desserts. So Jodi, take it away.
All right. So Claudia, you're kicking us off. I have always wanted to do this, so I'm really excited for you to talk about it. You're going to talk a little bit about homemade matzah.
It's actually one of those things that it's so simple, but because you buy Yehuda matzah at the market, and it's so easy, you don't think about it. But by the way, I didn't say, but I'm a Jew by choice. Rabbi Nanus was one of the rabbis who performed my, conversion like 3 years, 40, no, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago at this point.
While back.
I think it's nearly 5. But I was married. I've been married to a Jewish man for the last 20 years, and I've been celebrating the Jewish holidays for all this time. And when I first was welcomed in my husband's family, and I went to my first seder, I'd been here for like 2-3 years at that point. Still have a very much of a Mediterranean flavor, palate, and I was mystified by Ashkenazi cooking. I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Why are they serving bread that tastes like cardboard? What is gefilte fish? I didn't like much of it. I've come to love it. But since then, I started sort of bringing offerings, which are all Mediterranean offerings. And I've been doing extensive research on the Jewish Italian, cooking tradition. So I have like a big library of, Jewish Italian, recipes. And while I love matzah, the way you can buy it at the store, homemade matzah is a completely different flavor. The recipe that you will see has olive oil in it.
Wow.
2 reasons for it. One, it makes the dough more pliable. So you have to roll it so thin that it's a little bit easier. And 2, because the flavor is much better. And then you can put some, it's really, really easy. All you do is mix water and flour and a little bit of olive oil. You can do it by hand, you can do it in a mixer, and then you let the dough rest for a little bit. You roll it like super, super thin. You divide it in like 3 or 4, little pieces, roll it super thin, and you bake it on a sheet pan in a high oven for about like 10 minutes. And you put a little bit of salt if you want salt on it, and it looks amazing. Rabbi Shapiro, Rabbi Lira couldn't believe I was making my own matzah, so I had to send them pictures to prove it. And it just looks beautiful on the table.
Well, I'm available for that also.
I'll send you a bag.
It's so confusing because flour is not kosher for Passover unless you're making matzah.
Yeah,
Right.
It's very bizarre, but it's so cool. And maybe this is the year that I'll actually give it a try. So Diane, you have a French take on gefilte fish. And by the way, when Claudia was talking, she reminded me of a comedian named Sebastian Maniscalco, who talks about Jewish food, and he's Italian.
Yeah.
And he married a Jewish girl, and he says, you never hear anyone say the gefilte, amazing. So Diane, tell us how you make it amazing.
Well, this is it's a terrine. So it's in like a loaf shape. And it's ground whitefish blended with, I caramelize onions and carrots, and I bake it rather than poach it. So it's in one piece, and it comes out, you invert it and you slice it, and then I put it on a plate with, I do it 2 ways. If people in the old, people came and schmoozed for a while, we just have it with a glass of whatever before we sat down. And I had matzah crackers with it. But when I serve it as gefilte fish at the Passover table, unfortunately, nobody likes it. But I mean, gefilte fish in my group, so I don't make it very much anymore because it's only for me and my husband. We like it anyway. It's just so it's a rectangular shaped, and you put 2 thin slices overlapping with some really pretty greens on it. And then I like to do beet horseradish. So I'll either cook a beet, buy the beets in the can, or buy, I think, at Trader Joe's and some other places, you can buy the pre-cooked beets in the produce section by Frida or Melissa. Puree that with, and I like beaver white prepared horseradish. That's one of my favorites. And that's how I serve it. But it's basically, you're grinding it up and you put everything together, and then you put it on in the rectangular loaf pan and put a little lime juice on top. I'm telling you, I think it's easier than gefilte fish. So, and it's very well appreciated by gefilte fish lovers.
I want to add something.
Yeah.
That I just remembered. My grandmother baked matzo balls. She put them in like cupcake tins and
I've seen that. Yeah.
They're delicious. So that's another option of baking. Yeah.
Are they light?
Very light. They're like dumplings. They're
You have her recipe?
Wow.
I could try to find it, but I think
it's online. I've seen baked. I just wonder how light they can be, but it'd be fun to try it.
Yeah.
Jay, you have a.
My dad likes baseballs, so I gotta.
Some people like them really heavy. Yes.
But Gay, you have another gefilte fish recipe.
So when I was catering, we actually made our gefilte fish from scratch always. And it was, I think I never had a complaint about it. I think it was good. But when I stopped catering, because it is true, a lot of people don't go, the gefilte fish, amazing. That doesn't happen often. I decided to go back to doing it the way that my ex-husband's aunt used to do it, which was very simple. Now, the only gluten-free gefilte fish that I know of that you can just buy ready-made is by Kedem. There may be others, but I've looked and I can't find them. And I have to get that from Amazon because I can't even always find it in the markets. And I haven't gone back to going into a market yet. So I buy that, and it's just very, very simple. I think a lot of people have this in their repertoire. You just drain off the liquid, you put the fish in, you put carrots and leeks. I do leeks and so on, and you boil it down and it gets more flavorful and delicious. Now, one of my grandsons in particular loves Asian things, although the other one also does. So I usually serve it with a little micro salad of thinly sliced cucumbers and microgreens, and I take some kumquats off of our tree and slice them thin, and I do a little rice wine vinaigrette with it. And so it sort of makes it a little bit special. But, and my ex-husband still comes to our Passovers, I went to, which is kind of a sweet thing. So he and his third wife come, and his Aunt Dorothy's gefilte fish.
And for those of you keeping kosher at home, rice wine is kosher for some, but not for everybody. So that's up to, that's up to what you hold by. And if you hold by rice, then rice wine is fine.
By the way, about this, you can usually, I used to go to a fish market on Pico, I want to say. What was that? Gordon?
It was wonderful. We used to order it there. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I've been able to get it at Gelson's whitefish, and I will grind my own right in the Cuisinart. It's easy enough to do.
Gordon,
it's in my recipe. But,
Someone just put it in the chat. It was Gordon's.
Yes, it was Gordon's, right. And I live in the Val, and so there's a seafood market that has all of the various fish, white fish, that you can just pick up there. So, or Gelson's, I don't know where else, but I've had good luck with all that. I just wanted to mention that for everybody.
And Claudia, you have our last appetizer, right? You have a Charoset, but it's from Ferrara, right?
Yeah, it's from Ferrara. there were some very big Jewish communities in Italy, in Veneto, Venice, Padova, Ferrara, in Tuscany, in Rome, obviously, and in Sicily. And the Ferrara Jewish community has been pretty much decimated. There's not much left there. But there's a wealth of recipes that still stand, and that many Italians consume, and they don't even know they have a Jewish origins. But this Charoset I found in a book by John Nathan, and here's my husband. And I found it really intriguing because it has a lot of ingredients. Don't be daunted by the amount of ingredients, because all you do is just put them all in a pot and let them cook for half an hour. One of them is even bananas. So there's pears, there's bananas, there's apples, there's raisins and almonds and figs. And the really bizarre ingredient to me was chestnuts. Chestnuts are really popular in Italy in the winter. You find chestnut roasters on every corner, and you buy them, they give them to you, and it's used to be newspaper. But I'd never thought about Charoset with chestnuts. So you put all these ingredients, some orange juice, some orange zest, lemon zest, and they're interchangeable. If you don't like almonds, put walnuts or pecans, or whatever dried fruits you like. Put them all in a pot with some kosher wine, or if you don't want alcohol, just grape juice. The original recipe calls for some sugar. I don't put sugar, I put just honey, just because it seems more appropriate to the holiday. And let it cook for about 20-25 minutes, simmer. I like a bit of texture, but if you like it more as a paste, just put it in your Cuisinart and whiz it. Or, and then at the very end, you add the chestnuts. Chestnuts, I think, are easy to find here. I'm always found them at Gelson's. They're already cooked and they need to be cooked.
They're vacuum packed. And they also have them at Gelson's, and they have them at, of all places, not Pier 1. What's the
Cost Plus.
It's got another name.
Yeah.
Anyway,
having said that, you don't have
but they're vacuum packed and already cooked. Yeah.
But if you can find them, don't worry. Just don't make
So does it all break down? The whole
it all breaks down.
It's very different than the apple one. Yeah.
It's very different. I do chop the chestnuts so they don't have big chestnuts in it.
Yeah.
But it's been such a success since I introduced it to our seders a few years ago that I have to make a lot and send people home with it, because really it's delicious. I put it on my oatmeal or my cereal, or just spread it on a piece of bread or matzah, and it sort of connects me to. I come from Bologna, which is not far from Ferrara, so it sort of keeps me connected to my land.
And you know what? It reminds us, Claudia, that almost every country has its own Charoset recipe. Right, the Ashkenazi apples, walnuts, wine, or grape juice, and a little sugar. That is a delicious Charoset. I know Dahlia Haas did for the very first Women of Wilshire event, she did a Passover recipes, and she gave an Egyptian recipe that I use now every year. Hannah, maybe I'll send it to you before we send out the recipes, because it's all full of dried fruits. And we all know that matzah is a little slowing for the digestive system, what I'm saying. And when it's made, the Egyptian Charoset made entirely of dried fruits is very counteracting to that matzah problem. So Hannah, before you send out all the recipes, I'll send you the Dahlia's Egyptian Charoset. Okay, Susan, I'm handing it back to you.
So speaking of fruits, we have a delicious main course from Gai, gluten-free lamb shanks baked in fruited wine. So you want to tell us about that?
This is a recipe from an ancient series of cookbooks called the Women's Day Encyclopedia. Diane, does that ring any bells with you?
Oh, funny. I don't know that.
To imply that you're ancient. But
no, but that's interesting. Yeah.
Shortly after I was married, I would go to the Alpha Beta, and they would be featuring one of these cookbooks every, month or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, and I decided that even though we were very poor, I was going to treat myself to buying each and every one. And then I was going to make every single recipe in every single book.
Wow.
So I never did make every single recipe, but there were a lot of really wonderful recipes, and I still have the cookbooks, and I don't use them anymore because I do so much online. But these fruited lamb shanks are quite delicious, and I feel really appropriate for Passover because of the dried fruits. And I use a sweet wine. I leave the sugar out. I use a Manischewitz Concord grape, which I love.
Classic.
And the only thing that really makes it gluten-free is that I don't dredge the shanks in flour, which I often don't dredge meats anymore in flour. It's fine not to. I just brown it. And also, it's very important if you are strictly gluten-free, if you're dealing with somebody who has celiac disease, that you purchase dried fruits or nuts that are from a place where they prepare them in a factory or kitchen where there's no cross contact, where there aren't other things that are either prepared on the equipment that has gluten in them, or that there's even like flour that has to be 2 meters away, 6 feet, or 6 feet. It's such a famous, there's so many 6-footer things nowadays. But so I get mine from nuts.com because I really trust them, and they have a very large gluten-free section. So I get all of my dried fruits and nuts from them. Whole Foods, unfortunately, it says right on the packaging, that it's prepared in a facility where they prepare wheat. So it's pretty easy, and you can make it a couple days before, and it's great just sitting in the refrigerator. And I love dried fruit, so that's what we do.
That sounds delicious. And a lot of people don't, traditionally you'd think we'd eat lamb for Passover because of the Paschal lamb, but a lot of people don't. They make brisket or chicken or turkey. So it's nice to have a lamb dish. So we're going to go to our sides. And now, Jodi, we're going to invite you to talk about your onion puffs.
Yeah. So I am not a big fan of kugel. And certainly putting, I come from the school of Judaism that says that raisins inside of cooked things is an abomination. So I'm not a big kugel person. And so I when my mother was PTA president, she put at Sinai Akiba Academy, she put together a PTA cookbook, Pesach Potpourri. And in this, it's like from the 1980s, so long ago. And this has been my Bible for Passover. And this onion puff is really light. It poofs up, as the name implies. And we love onion anyway in our household. And it is so easy to make, although all along the way, you keep looking at it going like, I don't think this is going to work. And then you put it in the oven and up it poofs, and it's delicious. You can serve it hot. You can serve it cold. You can reheat it. It's like the perfect Passover leftover. So I submitted this recipe from my mother's friend, Linda Mayman, for those of you who know Linda. And this was one of her recipes that I've been making now for several years. So I'm a big fan of the onion puff as a non-kugel choice.
So what's in it?
It's only onions and oil and eggs, salt and pepper, and matzah meal. That's it.
Is the onion pre-cooked?
Yes, you pre-cook the onion, you saute the onions and in the oil. That's what the oil is for.
Right.
And then I gave the whole recipe. It's really like it's like egg, matzah meal, and onions. That's really what it is. So super easy to make. Even a non-chef like me can make it, and it comes out. And I'll just add, it looks really impressive. Like it looks like a thing that a professional like one of you would have made, but I'm just the one that made it. So I'm a big fan of the onion puff.
There was just a question, Gai, about your lamb shanks. Can you dredge it in matzah meal if you wanted to dredge and not, obviously it wouldn't be gluten-free then?
There is a gluten-free matzah meal. I think Manischewitz makes it. There's a gluten-free matzah meal and a gluten-free cake meal. And you could, though it would certainly make it heavier, you could even dredge it in a gluten-free, well, you can't do the rice. And now I'm hearing, you're right, Jodi. But are there any flours at all that you could, trying to think that you could Like buckwheat, is that a no-no? I don't know.
It might not be, but I can look it up.
Try it.
Almond meal, somebody said
Yeah.
almond meal.
I think it'd be too heavy.
Almondy.
Yeah.
Feels,
It
well,
wouldn't
doesn't
impart
usually
the
get
wrong
salty
flavor.
if you use almond flour. I don't feel like it gives a strong taste, but I do think it would change the texture.
So I want to move on to Diane's, and this is something I don't know how to do. The ABCs of roasted vegetables. Good roasted vegetables are always delicious and not that easy, I don't think, to make.
They're about as easy as anything. You need it's pretty basic. And I decided I have 10 million other recipes, but I thought I'd like to know this if I don't know how to think about roasting vegetables, because there's lots of little tips in here. Like you want to make sure you cut your vegetables evenly and not too small, because different size vegetables won't be ready at the same time. And it also yields a nice crispy caramelized outside to the creamy inside, which is what I love about roasted vegetables. I mean, I can't believe 20 years ago they didn't even exist in America. And I don't know who brought them in, but I started working with them, and they're just, you can do any kind of roasted vegetable you want. It's making sure that you cut them equal. But also you have to also think about the texture of the vegetable. Like you're not gonna, if you're gonna do butternut squash and Brussels sprouts, I usually would start the Brussels sprouts 15 minutes, 10 minutes earlier, because they're going to be a harder vegetable. So you have to think about those kinds of things. And I just gave you a lot of advice here. You want to make sure that you don't crowd them. Otherwise, they're going to steam rather than get all crispy and majorly delicious. I like sheet pan cooking. I mean, that, I've been doing this for years, and now, of course, it's a thing. And you can go to Costco and get online 2 sheet pans, Nordic ware. They're really good nonstick, and have them for many different things. But because if you have really high sides, you're going to steam rather than roast the veggies. Okay. Let me see if there's anything else. Here's another thing. You don't need to put them all in a bowl first and then put the olive oil and seasoning on. Put them on the sheet pan. And I often now will use, this is a great tip. You can buy these online. These are sheets of parchment paper, sheets, not the roll. You won't believe it's changed my life. I mean, you just put that on everything, and you can find it online. Look for it. You won't, it's just, everything's flat. You don't have, you have Reynolds.
Yep, they come in sheets there. Yeah, it's Smart and Final.
I mean,
Final.
Okay, I did it online for, it was ridiculous. But at any rate, I really recommend that little thing. You won't believe the cleaning, level or lack thereof. Okay, and I do like to combine a variety of vegetables. So you want the colors to be pretty together. And remember that if you're going to put beets in to roast, they're going to stain other veggies. Okay, so what I started to say is you don't need a bowl to mix them. You mix them right on the sheet pan with your olive oil and everything with tongs or a spoon. And I generally do them at, I start at 425 usually, and I see here it says up to 450. And then I will use it, check them towards the end and maybe turn it down a little bit. And remember, I also love using things like fingerling potatoes, because they're already cut the right size, because even if you buy the peewee potatoes that are really little are great that they have at Whole Foods. The ones over at Gelson's are a little bit bigger. But at any rate, it's a canvas for you. For the holidays, I usually do, I'll do root vegetables. Maybe I'll do turnips, carrots, parsnips, rutabaga. Or, you could just figure out whatever your family likes. That's what I would say. Any questions on that?
I think what I'm interested now to hear about is, even the title is very enticing to me. Pesach Fritters from Pastisseria in Rome. So this is obviously Claudia. She has two, and she also has baked fennel in bechamel sauce. So let's start with these fritters.
The fritters are between a side and a dessert. I happened to be in Rome, and I was visiting the ghetto with my family and my husband. And if you've ever been to Rome, if you've ever been to the ghetto, you know, there's like this little, area, square. And I noticed this woman standing there with a fryer, putting things in it. So I walked in and I said, what is it? And he said, oh, these are like, the Pesach fritters. And I'm like, oh, it's really interesting. So she gave me one and I ate it. It's a little store. It has no name. I then found out it's a really famous Jewish bakery. And she was really gracious and very, happy to share the recipe with me, which I sort of put in my phone. And then I came back to the United States and I made them. And it's made with matzah. It's matzah that you just put in water and then strain, as much as you can. And you add eggs and raisins. Sorry, Jodi. But on an aside, Jodi, I have to tell you that I was scarred for life the first time I had a noodle kugel. I was like, okay, this is pushing me over the edge. So I haven't had a kugel since then. So if anyone, I'm open-minded, has a great kugel recipe, please send it to me. I'm happy to make it and give it another chance. Anyway, you combine the matzah with the raisins, some pistachios. Again, you can substitute whatever nut you like. Eggs, honey, a little bit of honey, and a little bit of brandy. That's a very Italian thing. We put like wine or brandy in anything that we cook, most everything. And then you just mix it and drop them into some hot oil. I don't deep fry them. She had a fryer, but I don't deep fry them. I just put a saute pan with, half an inch of oil maybe. And I just brown them on both sides, take them out. Some recipes you'll find they're drenched in honey syrup. I don't like anything drenched in any syrup. I'm like any Persian desserts are really hard for me. So I just put maybe a little bit of powdered sugar on them or nothing. And they're just delicious.
Those sound amazing. Those are not a dessert though. That's like a side. You serve it as a side dish.
It's a side dish. It's we have this in Italy. We do serve sweet things sometimes as sides, like caramelized fruit or like fried pastry cream. Those are sides that go with
fried pastry cream.
Fried pastry cream. It's like the most delicious thing.
Oh my God. So it's a thick pastry cream.
It's a very thick pastry cream. You put it in the fridge, you cube it, and then you put it in flour and deep fry it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Wow. And did you want me to talk about the fennel as well?
Yeah.
While I'm at it?
Yeah.
By the way, I'm vegetarian. So, all these meals are kind of hard for me, between lamb and brisket and chicken. For many years, I would go to my in-laws and my mother-in-law probably would say to me, I know you don't eat meat, so I made you chicken. And I was like, at the beginning, I was like, I was a new kid on the block. So I'm like, okay, let me eat this chicken because I didn't want to offend anyone. So I always bring a lot of vegetables. While I was researching Italian Jewish food, I found out that a lot of vegetables that we eat in Italy and that we eat here, but in Italy, they're super popular, like, eggplant and artichokes and fennel. They were not considered very noble vegetables up until the 20th century, the beginning of the 20th century. They were actually called, those are the veggies the Jews eat. And fennel was definitely one of them. This is not going to work out if you keep kosher because it's got dairy. But again, in Italy, you would celebrate, 2 days of a festival. So the first day you would have meat, second day you would have fish. So then all manners of dishes with a lot of dairy, would go with that. So you take fennels and you take the, outer core, out. You cut them like in 2 or 4, depending on how big they are. And then you sort of boil them for a few minutes just to get them a little bit tender. And you make a bechamel sauce, which if you think it's hard, it really isn't. It's just a little bit of butter and a sprinkle of flour and some milk, and you just whisk and whisk and whisk until it gets, thicker. I add some nutmeg to it at the end and a ton load of Parmesan cheese. And then you put the fennel that you've drained in the meantime in a pan. Spread the bechamel sauce on it, more Parmesan cheese, put them in the oven for 20 minutes until, they become bubbly and the little brown spots here and there. And it's delicious. I actually grew up eating it as cardoons, which is a vegetable that here is not very easy to find. But a lot of Jewish Italian cookbooks have both cardoons and fennels, which the taste is different, but the texture is very similar.
Sounds delicious.
Mhm.
Do you want to take it back, Jodi?
Sure. All right. So now we are on desserts, the most important part of the seder. Okay, Gai, you have Jane Rubin Gerstein's almond tort as the gluten-free version.
Right. And it really has to do with making sure that you use a gluten-free almond flour or an almond meal. I like it a little coarser, so I usually use an almond meal that has been made with the husk still on, and the gluten-free matzah meal. And this recipe, can I tell the background of the recipe? Or it was,
Yes, of course.
So Jane and I became friends when our firstborns were babies. We met, I don't know if we met at a Magda Gerber lecture or if we went to it together. I can't remember that part. But we became good friends, and we were in a play group together with our little boys and Magda Gerber. And then about 3.5 years later, I had a daughter and she had another little boy. And for crazy reasons, I kept getting sick and I needed to stop nursing for a little while. And Jane would come over every day because she was nursing Zach, and she would come over and she would nurse Amy. So Amy wouldn't forget how to nurse because I was having to feed her a bottle. Amy and I went on to nurse for years and everything worked out fine. And she's in her mid-40s now. But Jane shared this cake with me, and I think it's delicious. And I've made it with pecans. I've made it with walnuts. It was originally made with almonds, and it's quite easy and moist, and you can serve it with whipped cream and fresh strawberries. You can make it really fancy if you want to split it and fill it, but it's just kind of a delicious, simple.
What are the ingredients?
So it has 12 eggs, a pound of powdered sugar, a pound of gluten-free almond flour, 4 tablespoons of gluten-free matzah meal, 2 tablespoons of rum, which is optional, and a pinch of salt. That's it. You separate your eggs and you lighten it with the egg whites, and it's and you can make it the day before. It's moist, so you don't have to worry about having to worry about it at the last minute.
With 12 eggs.
Jana Bodek Harris.
Separating the eggs is a little bit of a pain, but yeah.
Jana Bodek Harris says she also did Magda Gerber, so she was very excited about
Oh,
it.
how fun! We should. Yeah, great. She was amazing. She was amazing.
All right, Diane, your lemon pecan tort with fresh strawberries. Yummy.
Diane, you're muted.
Yes. Oops.
In here printing out stuff. Okay. So first of all, this is either lemon pecan or almond, and you'll see it's in the recipe. I call it almond, I call it pecan. So either one works fine. And this is with olive oil as the fat in it, which is, I love making olive oil cakes. And this one is really good. Basically, I guess the matzah meal, I use a little bit, couple tablespoons, and then the ground almonds or pecan, sugar, same thing, only 6 eggs, however, Gai, they're separated. And then I use lemon extract, lemon zest, And it's basically, you separate the eggs, and I'm trying to look at the sugar, 2/3 of a cup of sugar, so it's not horrible. And it serves 8 to 10. It's in a 10-inch spring form. And then I always serve strawberries on the side. And sometimes it's fun to add something else, like I would do limoncello, put a little limoncello. I don't know if that's kosher or whatever, but
It's just vodka and lemons.
yeah, limoncello with the strawberries, and let them sit, and then spoon them over the cake.
Yeah.
That's it, folks.
Well, our last two very sweet desserts are from
Yes.
Jodi,
Yes.
a dessert maven.
Well, and by the way, Diane, my husband Vlad just started making his own limoncello. So maybe we'll get you a bottle.
Oh, lovely.
You can use his limoncello for your dessert.
How funny. I just was using it and playing with it with this very idea for a new recipe I'm working on.
This pandemic has been great for alcoholic ingredients for him and baking stuff for me.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah.
My desserts to share. The first one is some people call it matzah crack. It's matzah toffee crunch.
Right.
There's actually a video on our website where I show you how to do it. And the recipe is included in this list. And it really is the thing that everybody takes home. And the thing that I have learned, though, is that you do have to use semi-sweet chocolates. Don't use milk chocolate. It does not melt on the matzah as well. And it really needs margarine, not butter. And I make regular toffee all the time, which does better with butter than margarine. For some reason, the matzah crunch does better with margarine than butter. I've tried both ways. But it's really easy to make. It's sugar and butter mixed together. And then, just like you make toffee, letting it cool over matzah boards, baking it for a little bit, and then putting chocolate chips on top, letting them melt a little and spreading it. And then you can put whatever you want on. You can put nuts, coconut, you can put whatever you want. And that's the thing that everyone takes home. And while my family complains that they're taking it home. So why?
How long in advance will you make it, Jodi?
You do need a little time in the freezer for it to harden.
No, I don't mean that. I mean before Pesach.
Oh, well, so we're pretty kosher for Passover, meaning we don't cook any of the things until the kitchen has been totally koshered. So I make everything within the day before and the day of. I know it's exhausting, but I usually do 12 hours of cooking on the day of the seder. So for those of you who are more liberal with your kitchens and kosher and whatever, you can make it weeks in advance. It stays in the fridge very nicely. So that's the matzah toffee crunch, which the reason we're 3 people and buy 5 boxes of matzah is because all week we run out and I have to make more. Then I wanted to share this because my mother made up this recipe from scratch. When I was a kid, we always had leftover charoset, which I find shocking because it's my favorite food in the holiday and I eat it all week. But we always had leftover charoset. And so she made up a cake that you use charoset. So I'm going to split the difference between Diane and Gai. It's 9 eggs that you separate. Lemon juice, lemon rind, about 1.5 cups of leftover charoset. So you do actually need to make a goodly chunk of it. And I just make a ton and make this cake right from the beginning. Some semi-sweet chocolate, matzah cake meal, potato starch, and a little tiny bit of salt. There are some instructions about what you do with the egg whites and what you do with the egg yolks, and it's all in the recipe. But even with that, it's very easy to make. Like I said, even I can make it, and delicious. It's the best Passover cake I've ever had. It's super.
Oh my God, that sounds so good.
Apples. It's super moist. It's a lot of apples and a lot of leftover charoset. So it really, and did I say sugar? There's sugar in there too. And there's quite a bit of sugar. So it's not so good. Like Diane said, it's the opposite. It's like a cup of sugar, but it's really delicious and it's fairly easy to make. And my family, if I don't make it now, they get upset. So that's become a staple in our house.
So I just want to say that if you came on late, all of these recipes will be emailed to you if you were on this webinar. But now we're going to open it up. We're going to make you all panelists with us. So we're all going to see each other, and we have 10 minutes. It's a perfect timing for questions from any of you or suggestions or whatever. So Hannah, if you would open up let people join us.
I'm starting to do it. There's a lot of people, so it'll just take a minute for everyone to get there.
Well, Hannah does that. Gai, there's a question. Where do you buy your lamb?
Oh, that's a challenge, to be honest with you. Lately, I've been buying it at Whole Foods, and sometimes I'm disappointed, and sometimes it's fine. I have tried Bel Campo, and sometimes I'm disappointed, and sometimes it's fine. This year, I'm thinking I might order it from Bristol Farms because they seem to have a really good meat section and fish section. But I used to get it from Gus Meats when I was catering, and his stuff was always amazing. I could tell him how big I wanted them, how little, whatever. So I can't say that I've really fallen into like a very happy place with that yet. If anybody else has, put it in the chat, and hopefully I'll hear about it.
I have two more questions for you that came in the chat. One is, can you cut the almond almond cake recipe in half?
I do not see why you couldn't. There's nothing in it. There's no leavening there. I mean, the egg white, but I don't see why you couldn't cut it in half.
And then the other question for you is, when you say to use gluten-free flour, does that mean you could also interchange regular flour if you wanted to?
For which recipe would that be? Like lamb, if it wasn't for Passover, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't see why not. I mean, for the cake, I used to use almond meal before it had to be gluten-free. And for the lamb shanks, I did used to do them in flour. I did see somebody it just came up, but I couldn't get to it, the idea of cassava flour. And I think that probably would work really well for the lamb if you really wanted to use a flour. I don't know why that wouldn't work. Cassava flour is amazing, and it's kind of new to, I haven't known about it for a long time. Maybe someone else has. I don't know.
Does anyone have any questions about any of the recipes or want to know anything? Or yes, Rabbi Lynn.
This has been absolutely wonderful. I've enjoyed it so much and learned so many new things. My question is, if you want to adapt the recipes after Passover, is it possible to interchange potato starch with cornstarch?
So who had a potato starch in their recipe that could answer that?
I think my Charoset cake, and you can interchange cornstarch with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, but you won't want to. The potato, it's perfect as it is.
Any other questions about any of the? Anybody have any other questions? So I have a question. If you're not making lamb, what Diane and Claudia and Jodi, what is your main course going to be for your seder this year? So Diane, I'll start with you.
I will do, I have to do two things always, which is brisket. And I have, we all have many different versions. I've got one that's more savory, one that's got dried fruit, et cetera, et cetera. If I'm doing the more savory with just the onions and the tomato and wine, then I will do a chicken with dried fruits. I generally do that, and I'll do, I just put up all those preserved lemons, Meyer lemon, olives, kind of sweet and sour, kind of a Marbella-esque chicken. Yeah. And I'll do that in pieces, and then I'll have the brisket done, sliced and everything.
By the way, everybody, the New York Times this weekend had 5 really, I'm not a cook, but looked really delicious recipes for Passover some very unique ones that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
I want to check that out. So Claudia, what is your main course?
Yeah, speaking of which, it's funny because I saw it this morning too. Well, I do make a brisket because I'm the only one who doesn't eat meat. So I do have to make brisket. But this year I'm going to make that fish that was in New York. I usually make fish, but that fish, it's a Moroccan type of fish with saffron in a saffron sauce. Sounded delicious. I'm going to try.
Yum.
Yes. Okay. And Jodi, what are you making?
So I make two things every year. I make a Bulgarian chicken recipe that is, it's actually with a spicy rib sauce, and it's made in sauerkraut, in kosher for Passover sauerkraut. So it's super juicy, and it's a big favorite here. And then my dad doesn't eat chicken, so I also we keep kosher, so I mortgage my house and I buy flanken at the kosher market,
Oh,
which
man.
long ribs. And usually the flanken is the most expensive part of the meal. But if I don't make the ribs now, and we use this special duck sauce from Canada that we literally, it's a sweet kind of garlic sauce that we bring from Canada. Literally anytime I go, we put it in our suitcase and bring it home for Passover. So I make flanken and this Bulgarian chicken recipe and sauerkraut.
Oh, and Gai, are you having anything beside the lamb?
I always make a fish also, and I keep it very simple. We have not this year, but next year, hopefully, we have a friend who's on a FODMAP diet. So I just do this very simple salmon under the broiler and serve it just with a sauce on the side. Super simple for people. And also my son is not really, I guess they're pescatarians, my son and his wife, so they will not eat the lamb.
So my daughter is a vegan, so
Wow.
it's really challenging.
That is challenging.
Well, we got a lot of comments about how much people enjoyed this class, so I think we're going to have to do it again. I want to thank our wonderful chefs for sharing their recipes. As I said, you'll all get copies of everything. And if you try something and it's really delicious, we'd love to hear from you and let us know how it went. Thank you, Jodi, for doing this with me. And everybody have a wonderful Passover, a beautiful Pesach, and we'll continue. Thank you all. Well, we're really happy to have you, and we'll be hopefully offering you more of these kind of programs that you're attending. So bye for now, and thanks again.
Hello,
Thank you.
Diana. It's so good to see all of you. We don't get to see you as much as we'd like.
Yes.
So many. Laura Kaplan's here. Faith Gomberg. Oh, I haven't seen you in ages. Susan
And
Janelle. Look at
Lynn Brody, your hair looks great. Yes. You're muted.
13 months of coloring it myself. It's not all that good close up.
I think it looks cute. Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.
all.